who they're dating, like how much of that is real. Like whenever there's
I think it's all
drama
fake.
in like their lives, the drama, all that stuff. I'm like, is it manufactured drama just for clickbait, just for views? Or is, I just question how real any of that is.
I think it's all fake. Every bit of it. The only reason is because from a logical position, I think that if you can't tell when it's real or when it's fake, you have to assume that it's always loaded. It's fake. So, and what is it? All the world's a stage. So, and I mean, okay, so if it were fake, then you remember the Kanye West guy, that
Yeah.
guy. So he had done some stuff and he said some anti-Semitic remarks. And those didn't sound like he paid somebody to write them for him. It sounded like that was actually him erupting, right?
That's true.
He's an artist. Artists are supposed to be crazy. So I actually will,
Yeah.
I'll forgive him. I'll forgive most. If you're like Marlon Brando, they said he wouldn't take, was it later in his life, what was the rumor that he would only take direction if somebody would do it to him in a Miss Piggy voice. He would only take that direction on stage or when he was doing a scene. I don't know.
Marlon Brando said that?
Yeah, that was the rumor about him because he was so eccentric and all this jazz. But
you have to give me direction in a Miss Piggy voice.
But
wow.
I would expect that though, I expect that if you're Salvador Dali, that guy was batshit crazy.
Oh yeah.
But he made amazing art. If like Kanye West, a very good artist. If you're crazy good at that art, you have to be tuned in a different way to other things than I am. That's why you see it that way. That's why you can make that music. So for like him, like he said some crazy anti-Semitic things. That seems like that's probably a glimpse at something more real in Hollywood because you're kind of seeing like the crazy kind of got out. In reality, as much money as he makes, I would imagine there's somebody that he pays to keep that shit from happening that they would get between him and him being a crazy artist. But he's a crazy artist. But I'm just saying that seems like that's a little more real and less theater because it doesn't look manufactured. It looks really bruised. You know what I mean? But like, yeah, that kind of stuff you're talking about, like the Will Smith thing, the slap, maybe that could be fake.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Who knows? All the world is a stage. This is true.
That's Shakespeare. And what is it? Bill Shakespeare. He knew what he was doing.
Yeah. So I just realized this is like a coffee shop.
Why do you say that?
It took me a second. I was like looking closely at our background. Yeah, it's a coffee shop.
Oh, excuse me, just a second.
So welcome to our coffee shop, if you're watching. We're really together, as you can see. It's not a virtual background at all. It's real. It's a real coffee shop. See? I'm drinking real coffee. So comment below if you think the Will Smith slap was real or staged for publicity. I also heard some rumor about Will Smith that he's actually like homosexual. I've heard all kinds of rumors like that about a lot of actors in Hollywood are actually homosexual and all their female or straight relationships are fake or whatever.
Are you talking about? I just said this.
Yeah, I've heard so much as far as like what's fake and what's real in Hollywood. Who knows what's really going on?
It's like I say, to the Hollywood, some of the relationships seem telling as well because I remember Jennifer Aniston was supposedly in cahoots with Vince Vaughn, and then lo and behold, they did a rom-com.
Yeah,
and then that movie didn't do so well. They broke up. Wow. And then she was hooked back up with somebody else that she did a movie with them as well. The guy that was in not the 300 maybe. But yeah, they seem to have relationships at the time really well for their movies.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's like the timing of their, there is like a theory that whenever a new movie's coming out to have some sort of like press release, whether it's like positive or whether it's drama, It doesn't matter as long as it's attention grabbing, which helps sell the movie. So some sort of like press release, you know. Mindfulness in Plain English by Bahante Gunaratana.
You froze there for a bit. I didn't catch any of that.
Oh, my internet became unstable.
Oh, yeah, I'm getting a little bit.
It looks like whenever I freeze for you, it looks like you're frozen for me. And whenever you freeze for me, it looks like I'm frozen for you. Because right now it looks like you're frozen.
I'm frozen again here.
Mm-hmm. You're unfrozen.
Is it unfrozen now? There we go.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I think that's good. Are we back?
Yep.
Okay, I
Yeah.
still have a little bit of a drag, but I'm sure it'll work itself out. So you came back on and you said something about mindfulness. That's where I lost you. I lost you
got
with a
this
bunch of
new
stuff.
book. It's called Mindfulness in Plain English. You know, a lot of times when I teach yoga classes, I read like mindfulness quotes. So I got this book to see if I could find any good quotes. But yeah, I could read one.
Hold on, I think I lost you. I got back to that.
I really like this book though.
Let's see what you got.
So this has some like really good quotes in it. It's called
We're going for quotes again. All right.
It's called Journey to the Heart.
Oh.
So I thought maybe I could read one of the quotes and we could talk about it.
Let's hear it. Journey to the Heart.
Journey to the
That is
Heart.
the title?
Yeah.
Journey to the Heart.
The title's called Journey to the Heart by Melanie Beattie.
I feel like a girl would take this out like on a date. You'd have candles lit. Like, I want to read to you the next 462 pages of this poem that I love. It's about
These are
peanut
daily
butter.
meditations on the path to freeing your soul.
Jesus.
So I'm gonna pick like a random passage and then we can dissect it and talk about it. Or we can make fun of it. If we might love it, we might hate it. I don't know.
Yeah, didn't it? Okay,
Right,
I gotta go.
I found a passage.
Let's hear it.
You are complete. Look around at all the lives, at all that is. See how connected each creation is to the workings of the universe. But see also that the essence of all that is, the core, lies within each. From the tiniest purple wildflower to the tallest redwood in the forest, each creation contains its own energy system, its own energy core for living. And so it is with us. We're intricately connected to the world. We receive energy, life-sustaining nourishment and support from the world around us. But inside each of us is our own source of love, joy, and wisdom. Our ability to love, live, feel, and be happy comes from our own hearts. Look inside yourself. Feel your vitality, your energy. Feel your essence. It is pure love. Everything you need in order to live and love is within you. Nurture yourself. Let yourself grow. Learn to grow and walk in the ways of love. Learn from all who cross your path. Value your connections to others and the world around you. Receive and give freely as you walk down the road.
How much longer is this?
This is the end of it.
Oh, okay.
Take your place in the world. Know you are part of a complete universe. But remember, you are a complete universe too. So do we love this, hate this, or...
It was long. It was long. There was a lot of stuff. There was a lot of things. A lot of things you're supposed to do. I don't know. I can do a couple of those.
Cool. I'll say what I loved about it. I loved that it is sort of reminding us that we do have our own sort of energy system, and we're all sort of connected, and we do have the power, the ability to love, to feel, and to be happy comes from within, which I think is a good reminder, because a lot of times we think we need all this external stuff to be happy. Like we tell ourselves, oh, if I get this house, or if I get this car, if I get this pet, or if I get this relationship, then I'll be happy. But it's a reminder that happiness comes from within, you know.
Happiness comes from within. It could be. I don't know.
So I like that part about the quote.
So there's, what is it? In the Eastern religion, there's the two Buddhas. Are Buddhas? I don't know if they're Buddhas. There's the skinny one. The
Hi,
one
Swiss
that
R.
down. Which one?
Sorry, on Twitch, Swiss R says hello. Hi, Swiss.
Hello.
Trying something different on Twitch today.
We are. We normally are modeling thong bikinis, but there's just not currently any new models out. And so no, but anyway, what is it? The Eastern religion, there's the Buddha one, the thin guy that he fasted down to a grain of rice. It's all his stuff is about restricting yourself and being chaste and being very governed. And then it kicks on later. That religion turns into that Buddha, the fat Buddha, the one you see in the restaurants, because he was the one about enjoying time with people and eating. Eating was a big thing. And he's, more than a grain of rice. He looked like he ate at least two, but he was a big fella. But that's what I say. That thing there, it's hard to pin it down where it's coming from. But I don't know. It's interesting. I don't think we have a connection necessarily. I think the world would mostly spit us out if you stop moving. You know what I mean? It would seem like it would do away with it.
Earth stop moving?
Well, I mean that the connection, if someone says that you have a connection with nature or whatnot, that connection is not necessarily to your benefit. If you lie still on the ground, the earth will swallow you up. The bugs will take you, and animals will eat you. And that's what I say. It may not be the connection you're enjoying that you're necessarily going to enjoy.
Right,
the
that's
nature,
true.
We're all certainly linked up, but not necessarily to our benefit.
Exactly. Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. It's like we are connected to nature. Like we wouldn't be alive if we couldn't eat plants or animals. Our survival does depend on nature, but it's not like nature's always on our side. There's hurricanes that kill people. There's weather that causes car crashes. There's
nature,
deadly insects out there that can kill you.
Yes. And if you use the term nature, it's very loose. It's something maybe it's something like when the Greeks were doing gods, or when we do gods now. It's kind of a general term, and it kind of ends up making nature seem like a humanistic thing, that it actually has a hand in stuff. You know what I mean? That there's some sort of a consciousness or something. Yeah, maybe not so much. Probably not.
So you don't think nature has any type of consciousness?
No.
Do you think that human beings are also part of nature?
Yes, but I don't think humans, like the soul, the whole idea of a soul for a human, I don't think that's real. That's not real. That's just something we can,
Do you think
Sure.
human beings have a consciousness?
I don't know what you mean by that. What do you mean?
Well, you're saying nature doesn't have a consciousness. Do you think human beings do?
Okay, yeah, and that's fair. I guess I can't ask you what you mean if I say it doesn't exist in another one. But okay, so then I don't know. We seem self-aware, but that doesn't seem special.
I mean, we do seem self-aware.
Mhm.
But I mean, that's another can of worms. Like, how do you define consciousness, right?
There's a really cool one where they took animals, different animals, and they would, when they were asleep, they would paint something on their face, and then they would stick them in front of a mirror. And if the animal touched the mirror, then they didn't realize that that wasn't them. But if they reached over and touched their face, then it seemed to imply that the animal had a perception of its own self, that it knew it existed, it knew it had a face, and it knew it had like an outward appearance.
Yeah.
Enough so that the reflection, that's a lot. That's a lot. And what is it? Birds, dogs, some dogs and elephants seem to know that. Humans obviously would know too, but maybe as humans, we see that thing painted on our face when we were asleep, and we're a little more detailed about the answer that, hey, I see that, you did it, or something like that. But that makes us still about equal with the elephant or the bird or the dog. Like we're like, if we say like consciousness, where I'm just a touch more conscious than they are, if that makes any sense. You know what I mean? If that were a thing, I don't know. But I think that's a good example of consciousness, isn't it? If you
Being
can look in the mirror and you
self-aware.
know that's, well, just
Yeah.
looking in the mirror and knowing that that's a reflection of you, that I have
Yeah.
a face, kind of thing. Is that
Yeah.
fair?
I don't know. I mean, every word in the human language is sort of open to interpretation, you know? It's like
Yeah,
we can agree on certain things, but you
mhm.
know, a lot of the human language that we've invented, it's very much subjective as far as like how to interpret the words, because everyone's going to experience every word in a different way. I mean, there's some
Maybe.
agreement there,
Yeah.
but as far as like how to define consciousness, I'm sure
Mhm.
a lot of scholars would have different opinions about how to define consciousness. Let me look it up. Let me see what Webster
Oh
said.
yeah, that's actually look it up. This is even though you just said we can't define it, and now you're going to look up the
Well, I'm
definition
going
of
to
it.
see what Webster says, right?
Good old Noah Webster. Noah
Good old
Webster.
Webster.
You know that
According to Webster,
Ambrose
awareness,
Bierce.
consciousness is defined as the awareness or perception of something by a person. Okay. So Webster doesn't even define consciousness in a way that can be experienced by anything but a person. So according to Webster, only people can experience consciousness.
Okay.
According to
You know
Webster.
that you know is it McDougal? That's not McDougal. Can't remember that guy's name, but the people that did the study, remember there was that movie 6 grams or something, that when people died, so many weight left their body because their soul left or something.
Yeah, it was called like 68 grams or something like
Yeah,
that.
because that was the
Yeah.
weight of it. Yeah, but there's a scientist who did that study where the bodies died and then they lightened or whatever. They did it with dogs too, and dogs apparently passed. So that's kind of neat.
Yeah, here's another definition from verywellmind.com.
Oh shit.
Consciousness is the individual awareness of your unique thoughts, memories, feelings, sensations, and environments. Essentially, your consciousness is your awareness of yourself and the world around you. But it's still sort of debatable in regards to how conscious other living beings are besides just humans.
Oh, I have a definition. Do you know Ambrose Bierce? Do you know him?
Mm-mm.
He was around here in this part of Georgia, fighting in the Civil War.
Oh,
But I'm pretty sure. But he was a horror writer, kind of like, I think like a Poe type character. I think
oh, okay.
time period's pretty similar too. But I think so. But he wanted Noah Webster to write a satirical dictionary, and Noah Webster wouldn't do it, and so he ended up writing his own. And you
A
can look it up; it's
satirical
online.
dictionary?
It's satirical. Well, sorry, satirical is not the best way. It's different, but I was going to read you his definition of conscious.
Okay.
And this is from the 18 something, but he's a pretty radical dude. When you read a lot of one of his definitions is the word African, noun, and the definition is a nigger that votes our way.
Oh.
And he says it the reason he says it that way is because during that time period, there was the thing called carpetbaggers, and that was people from the North that would come down to the South and try to get the votes of Black people, and they would talk to them nice, and they would call them carpetbaggers because their luggage looked like a big roll of carpet. It was just the type of luggage they had. But you'd see them coming, and they'd glad hand you, they'd talk to you nice, do anything to act like they cared about you. As soon as they got your vote, they ditch you. But that would have been the Republicans at the time, by the way. Republicans, not the Democrats. Yeah. No, shit. Sorry. That would have been the Democrats that were the carpetbaggers. Sorry, that's the other way about. Anyway, so here's the definition. Conscious.
Okay.
Noun, a morbid condition of the stomach affecting the gray matter of the brain and producing a mental discord.
Consciousness?
Conscience.
Conscience. Okay. Yeah. Conscience is different than consciousness.
Isn't that an exercise of your conscience? Your conscious?
Well, a conscience has more to do with like your moral compass, like your internal, what's right, what's wrong. Consciousness is just more of like awareness, not necessarily with moral judgment. That's how I would define it, at least.
I don't know. I figured it was just one kind of exercising and being the other.
So a conscience, like when someone says, like, Jiminy Cricket, let your conscience be your guide.
Oh no, I got you. I'm just saying that it like conscience and consciousness. I mean, you're like your
two different things.
No, I get you, but it seems like your consciousness is, or your conscience is your consciousness at work. Sorry, that's probably not the best way to say it. Okay, I don't know. It's the closest I could get. It's
so how does this guy define consciousness?
He doesn't have that in here. If you look at his dictionary, he kind of wrote it himself. So you're talking about probably for the letter C, he's probably got 50 definitions. So he missed a few words. Like he didn't define an, A-N, or a, or something like that. Those, if you go to the Oxford English Dictionary, you might get definitions for very basic uses of language. But you won't get that in this. This one's more just for fun. But
got it.
You know the guy that wrote most of the dictionary that we started with, the Oxford English Dictionary, was crazy. Absolutely crazy.
Crazy.
Yeah. His name was he was in a mental asylum writing the definitions of the words and sending them to Oxford so they could publish.
Crazy in what sense? Like what was wrong with him?
He was in a sanitarium. He had cut his penis off because he thought Irishmen were coming to get him and were going to cut it off anyway. So he took a penknife. Hold on, I'll tell you. There's a book called The Professor and the Madman. And it's about that. Professor. What? Yeah. There's a movie too. They made a movie about it recently. That's kind of interesting. Anyway, it's a remarkable story about, hold on, I'll read you the. You didn't know that? It's pretty fun.
No.
The book's really fun too. He's a crazy fella. The Professor and the Madman is this is from the New York Times. Professor and the Madman is an extraordinary tale of madness, genius, and the incredible obsessions of two remarkable men that led to the making of the Oxford English Dictionary and Literary History. Trying to find Dr. Minor is the one I'm referring to. He's the one who took a penknife and cut his penis off.
But he's not the only one who wrote the Oxford Dictionary.
No, but he contributed the most entries. I think over 10,000.
That's crazy.
Yep. And they say that it takes.
How can we trust somebody who would cut off his own penis?
Yeah, that definitely disqualifies you from a lot of things. Like if you're going to jump rope with the kids and on the playground, you don't get to do it if you cut off your penis with a penknife. But no, he was in the American Civil War, and he was really abusive. Men during that time period, they were coming over on the boat, and they would get off the boat. Remember that movie, Gangs of New York?
Yeah.
Have you seen that one?
I know the movie. I've never seen it.
Oh, anyway, that's that time period. But when people were coming off the boat from other countries, they were getting pressed into service immediately. They would draft them. Like as soon as they got off the boat, they draft them. And I don't know if they were allowed to, or they were just kind of pressuring them, but they would get drafted and they would be shipped off. So the Irish, some of the Irish didn't want to fight. So they drafted them and they shipped them off, say like Midwest, and they would realize that they're there to kill whomever. And they didn't want to fight. So they would desert and they get captured. And if you were a deserter at that time period, this guy Miner did this, they would take branding iron, and I think it was a 3-inch tall D for deserter. It'd be a big D, and they brand that on the side of your face, and then they pour dynamite or the gunpowder in the wound so it would always burn. And then that way, everywhere you went, you would always be identifiable as a deserter. You're still going to have to serve. So they still make you serve. You still have to go out there and shoot the rifle at the enemy, but that's how they punish you. And the Miner guy had done that to a bunch of Irish guys. And so he was kind of worried. He had this phobia or like a paranoia that they were going to come back and kind of catch him up and get their comeuppance. And so he cut his penis off, because that's what you do. That's what you do in Irish guys with D's burned into the side of their face are coming after you. You cut your penis off.
Oh my gosh.
Is that random or what? I'll see it. Yeah. Anyway, that's the Oxford English Dictionary. Yeah, he's fun. Yeah, that's a fun one. Anyway, Noah's dictionary is not got a good story. It's pretty boring.
So what dictionary do you trust the most? Do you rely on the most? Do you rely on the Internet Dictionary, Wikipedia? Do you rely on Webster, Oxford?
Well, I think that it's supposed to be that there's denotative, which are defined the way that the word is defined if you looked it up on one of those sources, and then there's connotative, the text in which you're using it. So like when I was a kid, if somebody said something was bad, that meant it was good. Right? Yeah. So same thing. So that's connotatively the word bad means good but then denotatively it would have meant bad or something. So now it's probably been defined correctly, but back then they wouldn't have had that part in the dictionary. If you looked it up, you would have been wrong.
Do you trust the Urban Dictionary?
The Urban Dictionary is fun. I like that site.
I'm just wondering, what dictionary you trust the most? Or do you just trust social trends?
I would say social trends, but then also it's usage. So Samuel Johnson, who allegedly wrote the first dictionary or one of the first dictionaries, he slighted the French when he wrote it. Nobody likes the French for some reason in that time period. But and he said that if you change syllables or you lash the wind, it's the same thing. So you can't stop the way words are used. So ain't wasn't a word when I was a kid, and teachers got so mad and they would get so upset about papers written with it. Now it's a word. It's the usage. So if you use a word enough a certain way, bad means good, you're going to get that. It's going to work itself out.
Like sick means cool now. When people are like, oh, sick.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yes,
I mean that's so I guess you have to take that a little bit. I mean that's the same thing like with the gender stuff. So people doing you see there's Senate hearings and there's doctors testifying and all this nonsense. But I think that like with the gender stuff, they're saying, oh, well, biologically you only have a female and a male, and there's gametes and the way you're your chromosomes are set. Nice shit. Chromosomes isn't the right word. Shit. But anyway, there's two sexes. As far as biological goes, and they keep pressing people, and so somebody will say, somebody like myself. So I'll dress up as a lady, and then I'll go, and somebody will say, "Are you a man or a woman?" I say, "Well, I'm a woman," because I want to be a woman. I want to be called that or whatever. So somebody will say, "Well, yeah, but you realize there's only two sexes. You can't be that." But it's in a way it's pretend, but I can't give the game away because I know deep down when I'm showering or when I'm by myself, I know that I'm not that. That's why a lot of people that do that would they do a louder version of it. They wear more makeup, or their mannerisms are a touch more outdone, is because they're trying to flex, because I think deep down they know that they're not necessarily that. biologically. They know they're not biologically that. And that's part of that might be part of the fantasy. That might be part of the what the person wants. But but to press them on the scientific terms of that's silly. You know what I mean? Like you're asking for something that's not the conversation. Does that make sense?
To press them on the scientific terms is silly.
Yeah, because you're saying, but there's only this and this, but and you're not that. But I know that. I'm dressing like I'm wearing lipstick, I've shaved, I've done all these things to try to convince you. Like I did all that on purpose. I did that on the back of that. You know what I mean? Like I put on a bunch of affectations to present myself that way. But it's kind of odd for somebody to come at the person and go, but you're not that. But yes.
You're saying the people who challenge transgender people, you're saying that just seems like silly to challenge them and say, you're not what you think you are?
Well, let's be clear, not every situation we're talking about and not every time when this has been done. But I'm saying just for general, in other words, like you might find situations where somebody's being completely nasty or being a mean person, or another person that's identifying as trans is saying things that are off. Or anyway, but my point is that that's you're kind of dressing up for that. That's what you want.
Who's dressing? I'm dressing up.
No, the person who wants to be that. The person who wants to.
You're saying the transgender people dress up, and I mean they dress up the way that they feel inside, right?
Yes, I would hope so.
Dress up because they feel male or female, so they dress up whether they're female representing or male representing.
I don't know if they feel male or female, because it's impossible to know how somebody else feels, and it would be impossible. I would assume that they feel like whatever gender they actually are. But I guess my point is that
gender, that's the argument though, that gender is a social construct. Sex, like your biological sex is one thing, but gender is a performative social construct. That's the argument. So just because I might be a biological female, I could still choose to present as masculine if I wanted to. I don't have to wear makeup. I could I could cut my hair and, take hormones or whatever. But so I'm just not.
No, I guess
sure
so.
What you're saying.
The point is that so example, if you were like visiting and I look like this, and I leave the room and I go into the bathroom and I do myself up, and I put on makeup and a wig or whatever, make myself look very feminine, shave. Of course, I'd probably need to shave, but anyway, and I do all that, and I come back out and I'm trying to act feminine and I'm trying to be feminine. If for someone to see that and say, hey, but you're still a guy, you're kind of missing the plot. The plot is that I know that. I just spent all this time doing that to try to get done up to where I can try to counter that. I know it's a fantasy. It's obviously a fantasy, and I know that fantasy, but you wouldn't want to give that away to the general public. So if you walk out in a crowd and somebody yells that at you, you wouldn't go, yeah, I know. Let me, you know what I'm saying? You want to kind of go with it because that's the fantasy. And I get that, but I think that a lot of the stuff that they're doing now, because they're kind of jamming science or politics into it, they're kind of missing out on the idea that that's the fantasy. That's what the person wants to be. That's what they're identifying as. They're already using a word to say they're separating or they're different from
they're transgender. They're identifying. If I say identify as a woman.
I've already made that capitulation that I'm not a woman. If I say identify as whatever. But for somebody to press into that is kind of, you're missing the point. They've already said they're not. But they kind of press them into a corner and they end up having a really silly conversation. And so somebody, let's say like I did that whole thing with you, that I dressed up like a lady and I came out and you said that to me and we're having this argument now. You're going to press me into having a biological conversation and I don't know biology. And that's what you see on the media constantly is you'll have somebody up there that's trans.
Yeah.
There's somebody that wants to be identified as a different gender than the one they are. And they're doing whatever you never get one up. You never get a person up there that isn't trying. They're trying. You know, I mean, they didn't just show up. It's not me standing there saying I'm a woman. It's somebody that's spent time trying to.
Yeah.
That's something they want.
They
That's
made
something
a
they
lot
want.
of effort to
And
present a
that's what they
certain
think will
way.
make them happy, and that's fun. So they get up there and they do that. For someone to press them into a biological conversation, it's kind of like saying, "Oh, but you're a Republican, and Republicans don't like that. Why are you like you're missing the point?" That's like they just want to kind of do that, and that's fun. That's why I say that's when you have that, when you press them into having a biological conversation. What would you expect? Why would you expect them to spit out proper biology? They not biologists.
Unless they're a biologist or,
Yeah,
an
but it's
expert in
you know what I'm
that
saying though.
field, they're gonna have a hard time with that conversation, right? So it's
But that's what they're because it's an agenda. One's an agenda. Like one is the agenda of the person wants to be this. However, they were inspired by it. They could have seen it on television. They could have a friend. Their parents could have talked them into it. I don't know, but they want to be this. And the other person is just trying to break it. And that's not. If the person generally was, if somebody that's interviewing, which you see it on internet all the time, if somebody were actually interviewing somebody that they felt had that dysmorphia, if they felt that they actually had that they're what is it, gender dysmorphia? I think that's
gender
the term they use.
dysmorphia.
If
Yeah.
somebody genuinely believed that person had that, to continue to hammer them on biological points probably isn't the best treatment. Maybe they need the care of somebody that, I don't know, is like a psychiatrist or a psychiatrist. If that were the case, they would need care from somebody that's qualified in that field.
Right.
And definitely not done on a stage in front of everybody.
On social media or
Yeah, and definitely not by that person. But that's what I say, it's each person. So when you see those, you'll have somebody they want the transgender person to be a biologist, and they want the interviewer to be a psychologist, and neither of which are in those fields. So you end up getting a really
they're not really qualified. Right. They're not really qualified. So, but I guess what you're saying is, to your point, it's like, why act like you're a psychologist or a biologist if you're not? Why not just leave them alone and let them identify however they want to identify, as long as they're not
it doesn't hurt
hurting
anybody.
anyone,
And that's so you see the one like on the media, they say the conservative media will say there's a drag queen doing a book reading at a school or something. And I honestly think that if it weren't a drag queen, if it were just like that Dylan Mulvaney person, I mentioned him before, if it were that person, I don't think people would care because it's not loud. I don't think they'd care. I don't even know.
Dylan Mulvaney isn't loud.
No,
Dylan Mulvaney is so
but he's not
flamboyant.
Loud, like,
what do you mean?
Loud like the drag queens. A lot of those that they show on the Fox or whatever, the conservative networks, are big red hair and makeup. It's
so is
really
Dylan
done up.
Mulvaney.
But he's not drag queen. He's not drag queen material.
Dylan Mulvaney would not want you calling her a he.
Whatever. Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I don't mean to offend, but no, but I'm just saying that they don't. Yeah, I'm missing
the right pronouns.
Not intentional. No, but I don't think that they would present the same way. I think that some parents may not even notice that he's not a woman, because he's a little bit more. He's not quite. His character's a little. Sorry. Their character is a little different, but it's not drag queen. It's just kind of a done-up woman. It's like a 20s woman or a 30s woman.
So are you saying like drag queens are more harmful?
No, I'm saying that there's a big issue right now with they don't want them to have a reading hour or something at the library with children. It does seem a little weird, but I'm saying if you switched out that very loud drag queen, somebody that's pumped up and wearing all the gear that a drag queen, expect a good drag queen to wear. I've been to some great drag shows, and that shit doesn't look good in a library. But if they wanted to wear that, I think if you switched it to somebody like that, like the Mulvaney person, somebody that's not, it's just somebody identifying as female, I don't think most people even notice. Unless somebody said something.
Because Dylan Mulvaney looks like a woman.
He isn't doing that. Like drag queens kind of have a pageantry to it. big hair, big breasts pushed out. Some of them have outfits that are a bit sexually, big shoes, glossy stuff, emeralds, a lot of like everything's bedazzled. I mean, that kind of thing. They're a little more done up for the day. They're normally like an evening function.
I will argue though, Dylan Mulvaney is always very done up. Dylan Mulvaney is very flamboyant and loud.
But compared to a drag.
I am transgender. I am a woman. And Dylan Mulvaney has like big hair, lots of makeup. Like Dylan Mulvaney is just as done up as a drag queen.
Not as much as a drag queen.
I would say
drag queens have like pink and big boots, and I don't know. I don't think of that his outfit as a drag queen. It looks more like a debonair girl outfit.
But I guess the question is why is one better or worse?
I'm saying that people
library, you know. I guess that's the question.
I'm saying if a Mulaney showed up in lieu of a done-up drag queen, people may not even have an issue because it's not so far over the mark.
Because they would just assume that she's a biological female.
They might, but I'm saying it wouldn't be so loud that you might even notice. And if you did notice, it might just you're not pressing in as far with that. That's just my guess, but I could be wrong. I don't think that I don't necessarily think that a drag queen reading books to a kid is really, that seems odd to me, but it's not inappropriate. It's odd, but it's not inappropriate. And the reason I say that is because I've been to the library and I know the books that are in the library, and I know that there are books that are graphic novels. One of the most famous books is that Nabokov? I think Nabokov wrote a Lolita. That's one of the most famous books. That's the book about a guy pretty much raping a little girl, the entire book. And it's a classic. And it's in every library. And so, I don't know, the fact that most people that when they say they're offended by something and it's around books, it's always funny to go and look through the books and find all the offensive books. Like when they want to ban a book because they say that it pushes a certain agenda with children or something of that nature. Those are arguments that are always made by people who don't read. Because if they did read, they would know that books like Tropic of Cancer exists. That book starts out with a guy, he's lying, Henry Miller, that's the author. He's lying on his back and he's looking up at a woman who's standing over him naked, I think in France, and she's got a big bunch of hair in her privates, and she's covered in lice, and they're jumping around, and he can see them, and he's just had sex with her, and he knows he has it now. And it's like that's the beginning of the book, and that's a classic. That's a book that in a lot of schools, if you go to Barnes and Nobles during their reading during the school year, that's listed as one of the books the students have to read. It's required reading. So, so I don't know. When people want to ban all that, that's what I say. Anything when you go to the library's been offensive for a long time. That's what kind of makes it fun.
Well, banning books, it's just a very controlling thing, because just because a book is in a library doesn't mean the kid's gonna read it.
If you ban it, they'll definitely read it.
And that's what I'm saying. Like if a child is curious and you tell them, don't put your hand in the cookie jar, they're a lot more likely to put their hand in the cookie jar if you tell them not to do something, because then they're just going to be curious, why shouldn't I do this? Now I'm going to test to find out why I shouldn't. That's just kind of like natural human nature. So, if you ban a book, kids are just going to be curious. Why is this book banned? Ooh, this is the forbidden fruit. I want to see what this is about, versus just like allowing books to be at a library. And then, teachers can still monitor like what they're reading, but like to just completely ban certain books that have always been there. And like, I don't know. I mean, I guess I can understand, not wanting to expose your kid to certain things until they get older, as far as like, but it just seems kind of pointless, I guess, to ban books. It just seems like
I wouldn't. Bertrand Russell, the guy from the 1920s, he said that he didn't think that there was such a thing as a child topic. So if you and I are talking and the kid enters the room, we don't have to hush up. We can keep talking because there's no such thing as a kid's topic or an adult topic. The reason I think he says that, he's also coming from a time period when people are a little more genteel, a little more polite. So if a person has proper manners, I don't know that I do. I probably don't. But if a person has proper manners, you could raise your kid that way. And you could say that there is no such thing as a childhood conversation or adult conversation, because you would always be speaking the right way in public. And if you like, if somebody's with somebody and they were going to have a very sexual conversation or something, they would have it in private. So there would be no such thing as a public conversation that was for children or adults. It would all be public.
Public or
if
private.
people carry themselves well, then that would mean that you wouldn't have to ban those books, because that would mean that same thing as if you're sitting with your kid and you're flipping channels on a TV that has every channel, and a channel came up with someone having sex. You may not stay on that, but you can discuss it, because you have the relationship where everything's a fair topic. But it would mean not to shame things, because that's what you end up having to do, is you have to censor it and then shame it. But there's certain things that should be discussed in private and some things that shouldn't. But if you just avoid them, they'll be had however. I don't know. I think I'm a little bit random, but anyway.
Yeah, it's kind of a tough call. Like, being a parent nowadays is hard to navigate, because with the internet and with social media, it's hard to monitor what your child's going to get exposed to. You know, I know some parents that don't want their kids having cell phones until they're at least 16, because they don't want their kids exposed to
phones now
porn
that
or whatever.
you can get for a kid that don't have internet. They don't have a phone. They don't have internet or anything on them. It's just what a way to make your kid a pariah. I mean, your kid is going to go to school and they are going to beat that kid senseless. The kid's going to have
because
to
I
have
mean,
access
if you're in a public school where most kids have cell phones and you're the only one who doesn't, they're going to feel left out, and it's only going to make them even more curious what they're missing out on.
Yeah, and they'll be on their friend's phone anyway.
Yeah, it's just.
I wouldn't say, that's what I say, is I wouldn't say block it. If a person can carry themselves in such a way that they act like a responsible adult in public, it doesn't matter what their kid sees, because you would see that with them. You wouldn't want your kid to see something outside of you. Like, you wouldn't want somebody else to show your kid something illicit necessarily, because you wouldn't be there to explain it. But if you were walking with your child and somebody were naked on the street, running down the street, it shouldn't be something you have to hide your eyes, because you have that open dialogue and you can explain it. But people don't generally have that with their kids. That's why parents don't know that kids already have very illicit books on their reading list for school. They've had them on there. The Iliad by Homer, one of the oldest books ever written. At the end of that, no, it's not the Iliad. Shit, it's the second one, the Odyssey.
Odyssey.
So at the end of that one, Odysseus comes home and Telemachus is there, and his wife, Odysseus's wife, has been fucking all these guys, and they're hanging out their suitors, and they want to, when she decides Odysseus is dead, they want to get all his shit. And Telemachus is Odysseus' son, and he's a wimp, and he doesn't do anything about it, so he just puts up with all these guys. So Odysseus shows up, they kill all those fuckers, and then they have the women who are all sluts and whores, they refer to this, they have them go out, they have them clean up all the blood from where they slaughtered all these people, and then the only person they spare is a blind musician, and I think that's Virgil, the guy who wrote or Homer, who wrote all these. That's him putting himself in the story. But what was it? So, and then Telemachus and Odysseus have all the women go outside and they hang them. So it's like, that's been around for a while. We've had graphic shit for a long time. Yeah, so you can't. Yeah, there's no way you're going to be able to block that from kids. It's the books that they're talking about. Some of them are pretty rough though, but they're not as rough as the stuff we already have.
And with video games too. I mean, video games, kids are exposed to like all kinds of violence, and it's just, I feel like it's almost impossible to shelter your kid in American society from things like that. They're going to find out about it eventually. But to your point, if you're a good parent, you just want to be around to explain those things.
You have to. You definitely wouldn't want somebody else to be teaching it to them. There was a lady that got fired by Bill Clinton. Can't remember her name, but she was like a public health director, and she had wanted to implement the teaching of masturbation in schools. And Bill Clinton fired her. And it was always kind of, I think it was a comical time period because he fired her for that. And at the same time, I think he was getting a blowjob in the White House.
That's pretty ironic.
but she had a good idea because the studies said that when you taught kids that, it cut down on pregnancies because the children are more familiar with their organs, so to speak, or how to, they were more familiar with the hardware. So
what was she trying? She was trying to teach
masturbation in school.
Like how to do it, or just teach
as a health class, as part of the health.
Oh, wow.
But it cut down on teenage pregnancies or allegedly, it cut down on teenage pregnancies because it made the person more familiar with their hardware. But it also, it seems like a parent would want to teach that because that's an intimate subject. I wouldn't want a strange teacher to be teaching my child that. But I guess the argument is that some parents don't bother.
Some parents just aren't comfortable talking about sex with their kids. They want their kids to learn that through their sex ed classes because they're just uncomfortable talking about those things with their kids. I mean, I don't have kids, but if I were to try to teach a child how to masturbate, like, I don't know, I would feel weird about that too. Like, I would feel pretty, especially if it was my own child. Like, that
you see how I'm gripping it? You're going to want to grab it the same way. You're going to want to grab it. Go ahead and grab onto mine first, just so you can see how to do it. That's probably.
But I mean, if you study psychology, the crazy weird thing is about psychology, though, is like subconsciously, girls are attracted to men that remind them of their dads. Boys are attracted to women that remind
that's Freud stuff. That might be true. That might not be true. I don't know.
I mean, I don't know, but it regardless, like, I don't know how many parents would feel comfortable teaching their kids how to masturbate.
It's a little weird. Especially if the teacher's like somebody that you wouldn't want to imagine masturbating. Yeah, you'd want a good looking teacher to teach it.
But I mean, like, that's I don't know. I mean, I think most kids like learn about that stuff just on their own, like through self-discovery or through friends or through porn or just reading about it online,
I'm sure none of it was reading. Nobody reads their way to porn. Like, oh, you know what? Instead of reading an article about banging this girl, I should watch a movie, a documentary, Hey, I'll be right back. A documentary.
Well, comment below if you have any opinions about this topic. Like, do you think that if you're a parent, like, do you think you should teach your kids about sex ed? Or do you think you should allow kids to learn about it in schools? Comment below. Let us know your thoughts. I have mixed feelings about all of that. I really don't know. I don't have kids because I don't trust that I would be really very good at that. I think at the very least, parents should teach kids about STDs and how pregnancy happens. I think that is something parents should make sure their kids are aware of. Right before they reach puberty, I think parents should at least just give them a book. If they're uncomfortable like talking about it verbally, all they have to do is give their kid a book or give them a website, and say, I just want to make sure you're aware of what sex, how you get pregnant, how you get STDs. That is something I think kids need to know around right before puberty, at least. But it's very easy. It's not like the parent has to actually do a demonstration about it's not, you can teach a kid about sex without actually having sex in front of them.
I don't think they should hand out books on STDs just because that seems like that's the only thing that health classes do is they hand out books on STDs. When they talk about sex, most health classes seems like they're focused on the negatives and not the positives. And by doing that, it ends up being something like the war on drugs was, in that you start telling everybody it's terrible and it's going to kill you, and then everybody tries it and they like it. They don't trust you anymore. So it'd be better if like maybe teenage people get tested and they wear a wristband or something, and it shows that they're recently tested. That would be a little better, because in getting tested, they would be aware of what they're being tested for. But to teach a class on all the negatives of sex and the diseases,
it doesn't have to be all the negatives. I mean, it's not
but then the positives end up being in person. You know what I mean? Because you don't want the teacher to be talking about the positives with your kid. Like, it's like, in other words, it was like
why can't you talk about both? Why can't you say these are the good things about sex, and
what I'm saying
are like risks?
If you have a teacher teaching it to your kid, it seems kind of bad when your teacher's talking to your kid about sex if it's good conversation. But if it's STDs, it's okay. And that's kind of how STDs got stuck in schools. That's why that's the only thing they teach, because it's okay if the coach teaches your daughter how or what herpes is, but he can't talk about what an orgasm is, because one gets you put in jail and the other one is a good health teacher. You know what I mean? I'm saying that I don't think that they could.
It just doesn't seem like
it seems like you're going to have to, if you taught sex in schools and you don't want the teachers to either be pedophiles or go to jail for being one, you're going to have to just talk about the negatives. Maybe the parents should go to a class so that they know how to talk to their own damn kids about sex.
Maybe parents just need to take a class on how to teach your kid about sex education in a way that is appropriate and comfortable without actually having sex in front of your kid.
Yeah. But I imagine if you're like I say, if you're carrying yourself well and you're trying to do the best things, then your kid would be the example you set. So if you're a good person, they would be a good person too. So just hope you're good. I think, in other words, if you see somebody and their kid's a complete piece of shit, that can't be just an accident.
No.
That the owner was a piece of shit too. Let's get that out of the way. Because the parent is technically the owner of that kid until that kid turns 18. You own everything. And then really when the kid's 18, if you let them out of the house and the first thing they do is run down the street, kick in the neighbor's door, the neighbor's allowed to come back to that parent and yell at them and say, hey, you just let this one out, and it's not a good human. But
I think that's part of the problem with society, is like parents are having kids that don't really know how to parent, that they don't actually like have the skills to be a good parent, or they have kids because they have unrealistic ideas of what it's going to be like. They think, oh, I want to have a mini me around. They don't think about the reality of postpartum depression and all the time and like energy and sacrifice you have to make. So parents don't have the skills. They're not equipped. And so they create, inadvertently like little monsters who are running around. And,
oh my God.
Yeah, I think I really wish like the president, I really wish the president could make a law. Like you have to go through a certain amount of training before you become a parent.
That'd be tough. And then who's going to be the teacher?
Well, right? I mean, they would be like qualified. They would have to go through extensive training too, like how to be a good parent. There's books out there, but how many parents actually read the books? How many parents actually learn the skills?
Who would say that? What's the right parental approach? Like, what I mean? What's the right way? I don't even know that people actually know the right way to raise a kid. There's that movie. You ever seen the movie Boys in the Hood? Have you seen that one?
No, but I know the movie.
Really?
Yeah. I've never seen it.
That's a great movie. There's a character, Lawrence Fishburne's in it, and his kid, I can't remember what the young man that played his son when he's younger, but ends up growing up to be Cuba Gooding Jr. Cuba Gooding Jr. for some reason, like an amazing actor, and then just suddenly turned into just like the shittiest movies ever. He did Snow Dogs and everything was downhill from there. I don't know what happened, because he's a great actor, but for some reason, no. But in that movie, Lawrence Fishburne is his dad, and he's a single dad. and his wife essentially drops the kid off because he's kind of being a rambunctious teenager, and he grows up into Cuba Gooding Jr. But when he's younger, he's talking to him like a dad. That's a very, I always thought when I was a kid that was what a perfect dad was supposed to be, was that. Because he's real, in the movie, he's real hard on him. He makes him do chores, and he even says, at one point, he says, Trey, you think I'm being hard on you now, but you'll see how Doughboy and those boys across the street turn out. You're gonna see that, and they do it. They end up like in a life of crime or whatever, and he raises the kid right. The kid's a good kid, but I don't know. But you couldn't implement that. You couldn't have Lawrence Fishburne come and teach the class. So I don't know how you teach parenting. You know what I mean?
Well, it would just be like, going through some sort of training like anybody goes through for a job. Like, you could teach it the same way you would teach any other skill.
I don't know. That's not any other skill, though. That's different. I don't know. It's hard to, yeah. Oh, hey, I was wondering, at some point, is there any way that we could have the subject we're on currently on the bottom of the screen?
Oh, I mean, what do you mean on the bottom? Like
there would be written, like it'd be written at the bottom. Like if we're on religion, it would just say religion. And the only reason I say that is because if anybody logged in, they'd know what subject we're on. But then also, if we ever edited these and split them up, it'd be very easy to split them because when the word changes, just cut right there.
Yeah. I mean, in post, if, in editing, you can do that. You can't really have text pop up through this live stream.
Oh, okay. I thought there was something that we could, like some way we could type it in and it would just stay up there.
No, not through like a live stream, but you could edit that in a video.
Maybe I'd do that. Do you think that would be useful?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to edit it.
I need to figure out how to do that. Oh, hey, so I was asking you earlier, tell me what you thought about Terminator.
I mean, it was really fun. I saw Terminator 2, years ago, like a very, very long time ago.
I saw that in the theaters. Yeah.
Yeah. And I realized I had never seen Terminator 1. And I remember thinking, wait, in Terminator 2, he's like a good guy. Arnold Schwarzenegger's like the good guy. Yeah. And it was really fun. I think it was really well written, well directed.
The first one, you thought? We're talking about the first one, right?
Yeah,
or the second one?
Both of them. But the first one is the one I saw recently.
Yeah. That's the one that has the stop
I thought it was a really
great
movie. What?
Yeah. That's the one that has stop sketch animation with the robot.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah. No, I thought it was great. And it was fun to see it on like the anniversary of the movie. So that was cool.
James
Cameron.
No, not James Cameron. James, hold on. Shit, I can't remember his name. There's a guy that played, the movie Westworld or the show Westworld? Okay, yeah. There's an older version of that, the original version of that came out, and the guy was James, I think it was James something, I can't remember his name, but he plays a robot in that movie. Yeah. And Schwarzenegger had said that he had a really good robot, that the way he was moving, it was very steady. It looked like a robot, and he had commented on that, and he tries to exemplify that in that movie. Schwarzenegger in the first one, the second one, not as much. The third one, not at all. But the first one, he has that quality where he looks very robotic. He's already stiff as fuck anyway.
He's so good. He's so good at just like looking so stoic and emotionless.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah,
like stillness can be really hard for a lot of people, but Arnold Schwarzenegger is really good at being still and stiff. And he seemed very robotic. It was an interesting performance. I had to play a robot one time for this this music video, and it wasn't easy.
A robot for a music video?
All right. I had for a music video. This was like 8 years ago ish. I don't know. But it's you have to be like really subtle, and stiff, which as an actor, most of the time you're trained to try to relax, but it's sort of counterintuitive. Hi, Mopar. So I'm
not seeing any of these people. I should look this stuff up.
We have a commenter on Twitch.
Let's hear it.
Mopar has been one of my Twitch followers for a while. Mopar takes some of my virtual yoga classes and joined us for our recent movie reaction. Mopar says Terminator is a classic action movie. Gunslinger on original Westworld. Yeah, 1973.
What was that guy's name? Does he know that guy's name? The guy who was the original, the one that Schwarzenegger was trying to model some of his robotic stuff from. Because he said that he had a meeting with James Cameron, and he had mentioned that was how the character should be played. Because they originally was going to be O.J. Simpson was going to play that role.
Oh yeah,
O.J.
that's
Simpson
right.
had just come out of football, and he was everything big. O.J. Simpson would have been great for that too. He's a big fucker. He'd have been great. He'd have been scary as hell. But I mean, because I think he's taller than Schwarzenegger. He's big. He's a professional football player. So I mean, he was a monster. But yeah, and he ended up doing some other stuff. He killed some other people. He was good in the Naked Guns.
So Naked Gun is another one I've never seen.
You haven't seen Airplane then, right?
No, I did see Airplane. I saw the first Airplane. I haven't seen
Leslie Nielsen Airplane.
Yeah, but I will say when I watched that movie, it was somebody asked me to film a movie reaction for that movie for their channel. And the direction I got kind of threw me off. And I remember it was not a good time when I was watching that movie because I was exhausted. It was a day that I had taught I think 7 classes, and half of them were for kids. So I was just drained. And I remember watching that movie. I was just so tired. I also think I had an acting class or something that day where I had to do this intense emotional performance. So my energy was just zapped and my brain was fried. And I just remember watching that movie feeling I'm so tired. Why am I doing this right now? So I want to watch it again when I'm not so tired, and I'm sure I'll have a better experience.
It's the Duffer Brothers comedy. So you either it's kind of like Monty Python. You're either going to get it or you're not. If you don't get it, that's fine. Doesn't mean it's bad, or it doesn't mean you're bad or whatever. It does. But I love Zucker Brothers comedy. They're great.
I want to watch the first one again, and then I want to watch the second one. But I feel like you have to be in a certain headspace, to appreciate a movie like that. So, let's see. Mopar responded. The gunslinger was a model 404, 406 android and the main antagonist of the 1973 film played by Yul Brynner. The gunslinger was designed to be the villain of the park. He is supposed to confront the guests by challenging them to participate in duets. Sorry, were you trying to talk?
Oh, yeah, Yul Brynner. Yul Brynner is the guy. Yeah. I see it.
Yeah. Thank you, Mopar.
Yeah, thank you, Mopar. Where's Plastic Bowl?
Yeah. So Mopar, we're gonna put this little podcast here on a new YouTube channel, just for podcasting, just for chats, just chatting, and it's called Love It or Hate It. So Mopar is now following me on my yoga and healthy lifestyle YouTube channel, on my film review channel. This next one is just called Love It or Hate It, Just Be Honest podcast. So I'll put the link in the chat if you want to follow this one. But this one is literally just podcasting. So that way everything's kind of organized. So let's see here. I will post the link there.
Oh, Nightbot's on here. I don't know who that is. It looks like somebody. Is that a bot?
Oh no, that's literally a bot. I set that up for Twitch. That's a Twitch thing. Nightbot isn't a real person. It's a bot.
I was going to say fuck Night. We had a run in the past. It was very upsetting. Oh, ask Mopar, have you ever seen Centennial? It's a 1970s, late 70s. It's got Robert Conrad in it as the main character. Pascal. Oh, you should watch it. It's a TV miniseries. Really long. It's the foundation of Colorado, but they call it Centennial is the fictitious name, but it's a beautiful story. I don't know if he or she or they, I've never read it, but it's a book and a movie, but the movie's quite good. He said haven't. Okay, so I might like it. That's good. It's old. It's on YouTube. I know it's on here, but the Yellow Apron's the best one. The best episode.
Just be honest. I'm trying to find the YouTube channel on here. I was gonna post the link.
What are you posting for? What?
The link to our channel. Love it or hate it, just be honest. The channel. So we haven't posted anything on it yet. So
sweet. I hope you like it. It's good. There's the cool thing about the story, I think, is that the author Mickelson, I can't remember his name, but he does not portray Native Americans or Indians. He doesn't portray them negatively. They seem like they're actually really cool. It's like a beautiful story. The Indians get slaughtered, not to give it away, but it's a great story. And it's history of Centennials or Colorado, so you would already know that. But yeah, beautiful story. Beautiful story. Really cool scenes.
Yeah, I would love to watch that.
Robert Conrad, he used to do commercials for like Right Guard, and he's this tough guy. He's a small guy, but just one of those people that's real rigid and tough. Pretty much can only play kind of tough guy roles, but he plays a character in this one, Pasquinel, and he's a coureur de bois, which is a French trapper from Canada, Quebec, Canada, and he comes down and sails down the Missouri or the Mississippi. Anyway, somehow he ends up getting to Colorado, and he hunts for beaver, and he meets all the Indians, and it's the foundation of how Colorado, because the trappers would have come there first, and that's when you had the indigenation of the Western world coming into that part of the United States. It's very pretty. This is very like United States history. The Indians, the Trail of Tears and everything is in the movie though, or in the show.
Oh, cool. Good. Yeah, I'd love to watch that. So Mopar, I just shared the link. And anyone else who might be watching, that's the link. It's just Love It or Hate It podcast on YouTube. So that's where we're going to re-upload this podcast, and any future podcasts will be there.
Why is Mopar talking about, well, I don't understand who is this? Antonia Irina Brascovi. I don't know who that is. I'm not sure what that is.
He's probably just trying to share some information.
I just don't know what it's pertaining to.
I don't know either.
Might have something to do with the stuff you're sending. I don't know.
No, all I did was copy and paste the Love It or Hate It podcast link on YouTube. That's the only thing I did.
And Nightbot's busy. That robot bastard. That Yulbrenner wannabe piece of shit. Anyway.
Well, thank you for sharing the info, Mopar.
At some point, we should do the religion. We were going to do the religion conversation or the prostitution conversation. Those are both good.
Well, we did talk a little bit about consciousness, so that sort of ties into it a little bit.
Which one? Religion?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I didn't know if that tied into prostitution or not.
Well, you were talking about
Centennial's author. Oh, I thought Centennial's author was the guy. Hold on. I think we might be talking about two different things. As I thought it was a guy, but maybe he stole that story. That would be terrible. Centennial. Oh, that would be terrible. Because he's saying it's by this lady, and I thought it was by this guy. Created by John Wilder with hold on.
Mm-hmm.
Well, shit. I think he actually he might. I don't know. Composer, network producers. Well, shit.
Well, thank you for sharing, Mopar. Yeah, so for anybody watching on Twitch, if you like our little podcast thing we've got going here, the next one will be on Love It or Hate It YouTube. I shared the link in the description. If you want to watch me react and review to movies, that YouTube channel is Real Takes and Movie Breaks. And then my yoga and health channel is Yoga Flow with Kim. So whatever most interests you, kind of collaborating on several different endeavors here to provide entertainment, education, stimulating dialogue. So, but thank you, Mopar, for sharing the info.
So I tried to send some, but it wouldn't let me. But James A. Michener is the author of that book.
Oh,
so maybe
okay.
he might be looking at a different story.
Okay.
But so we're not sure. James A. I tried to send it, but it's I think it's asking me. I try to send it, it doesn't let me. I don't have an account, so I think it doesn't like me. But that's fine.
Oh yeah, you have to have an account to comment.
Well, so that tells you I'm a piece of shit. I don't have one. But James A. Michener is the guy. But anyway, so you.
But
I don't
but yeah,
have
this
any.
podcast we're doing, Mopar, it's just going to be a wide variety of topics. It's just going to be chatting like any other podcast. We might start with a topic, a point of focus, and then branch off from there. So
Depending on how our chakras react.
yeah. And maybe eventually we'll have guests and things like that. But we literally just started. So there's nothing on our YouTube channel yet. This will be the first thing I upload to it.
We are babies on what's the island? What's the island? Epstein Island.
Epstein Island.
We are just babies on Epstein Island. We haven't been visited by the Clintons or the Prince Andrews. Or I think Trump was on there too, if I'm not mistaken. Did you see the thing?
I'm pretty sure every politician was on Epstein Island.
They were all visiting Epstein's Pimp Island. Hey, do you know, I saw an interview where they asked Trump about that. And they went through a list of, will you release JFK files? Yes. Yeah. And they got to that and he waffled. He wouldn't do it. I said, I'm not sure. I have to look at it. Not sure if we should do that or not. Yeah, he didn't want to say, he didn't want to release the files.
Well, yeah,
the FBI seized the Epstein guy. We're really off subject now. The Epstein guy had cameras throughout the entire house, so he had video of everything. And when the FBI showed up, they allegedly took it all. So there's a lot of files out there that nobody's seen that would name a lot of people.
Yeah. So. But I mean, politicians, people in power are going to do everything they can to avoid exposing themselves. So.
Well, unless there's a little child in the room, then they'll definitely expose themselves.